Elaine, where do you keep the bourbon? While Freddy looks for his bourbon, today we're going to be having a look at the NECA Toys A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors Retro Cloth Freddy Krueger. So let's figure out how tall Tuxedo Freddy stands. We'll put it next to him. Much like all the other retro cloth figures from the NECA line, the figure stands at about 7 3/4 of an inch in height. Hey, this is pretty cool. Check this out. Included with retro cloth Tuxedo Freddy is the paper mache house that Kristen was making at the very beginning of the movie. Crude, yes, on the one side, as this is the section that she has not finished. She tries her best to stay awake to prevent herself from dealing with Freddy Krueger by making this paper mache house, and it does actually look pretty cool. What's neat about it as well is there is a battery compartment located on the underside of the house, and there's a little button located on the back. When you turn that on, it illuminates all the windows on the sides, the back, and the other side of the house. In fact, the only place where it doesn't illuminate, sadly, is the front of the house, because most, if not the majority of the house, is just simply molded and painted. A nice little accompanying piece. I hope to see, if anything, this make a revisit when we eventually get ourselves an ultimate Tuxedo Freddy, which I can only hope be the case. Sadly, that is the only accessory that the figure does come included with. One thing I kind of hoped it could have been included was the head from Elaine Parker, the head sculpt in which, taken from the scene, Freddy's waiting downstairs very patiently initially for his bourbon, and then proceeds to sever off Elaine's head, holding it in his hand. It is very, again, interesting that they would not have included the head sculpt, the severed head, not unless they couldn't get the likeness for that actress, but perhaps maybe we'll see that in a eventual future release of an ultimate Tuxedo Freddy, in which the Elaine head will be included. As for the figure itself, it's basically the tried and true go-to for NECA to be releasing the retro cloth figures. It does also give us opportunities to get figures that maybe from a modeling tooling perspective, they simply just can't, it's just too expensive to produce a figure from the ground up in a plastic form. The retro cloth is really good for that, because essentially, if I just kind of move the sleeve up from Freddy, he's using essentially the same body as all the other retro cloth figures, and they've just simply just sculpted brand new hands, in the case, of course, of the glove, the new head sculpt, and then they've given him new fabric outfits, which, from a fabric outfit standpoint, it's a lot cheaper to produce this than it is to produce a brand new mold just to give us a plastic figure. The head sculpt is good. I will say, though, I don't know if I would have used this particular head sculpt. I mean, to be fair, Freddy Krueger in tuxedo form makes such a short appearance in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And what time we do see of him, I don't remember or don't recall seeing him with his tongue sticking out. Rather, in fact, I would have pictured him more so with like a sneering, smiling face as he's holding again. Because really all you're seeing is Elaine being pulled through the door, or inside the opening of the door, and then he reemerges with the head in his hand. You see her talking, and then he lunges for her on the bed. So I don't really recall too much seeing him with a tongue sticking out. Now, to be fair, though, you could simply just take the head sculpt off and replace it with any of the other retro cloth Freddys that we've gotten. Now, there's certainly been ones with big sneering faces. You could probably have used that. I don't know necessarily if the color is going to jive, though, from the neck to the brand new head sculpt, that you may essentially just want to kind of keep it with this head here. But for the fact that I don't know if I would have used a tongue sticking out Freddy, it is a fantastic head sculpt. Really like that head sculpt quite a bit. The coloring is probably one of my favorite aspects of it. It's generally from a distance looking almost like a peachy brown sort of color. It's only when you start looking at close-up areas of the face that you start seeing, yes, in fact, that there are lighter areas kind of on the outer area of the skin. The more scabbed lower tier, lower areas of the skin on his flesh is more of a darker variety. The paint is really what excels this figure and brings the head sculpt to a brand new level. The eyes are very nicely painted. They've even done an outline around the eyes. If not for that, the eyes may have gotten a little bit more lost. Outlining the eyes, in which they have done right here, the eyes stand out against the backdrop here of the flesh tone. The tongue also is of a very close coloring, slightly a little bit more pink in color, but again, it shows quite well sticking out. Not really sure, again, using the tongue sticking out option for the head sculpt, but again, it's a nice different take on Freddy. You can't always have him just with a very somber face, or at the very least, a very sneering face for every single release. So this kind of mixes it up a little bit. As for the rest of his outfit, now again, this is Tuxedo Freddy, who really seemed to become a fan favorite of one of Freddy's designs. He stands out for a lot of people's minds for Freddy's different looks, even though, again, he's not really in the movie for a whole lot of time. Tuxedo Freddy does come with a cummerbund. There's the cummerbund right there, which I only know because I was an usher when I was growing up. I remember my cummerbund, I think I put on the wrong way. My parents quickly corrected me that the cummerbund faced to the front. He's got some buttons on the front of his tuxedo shirt, followed by a alternating color of green and pink, or a darker red color on the bow tie. The bow tie is glued into place, so it's not something that you would be able to open up Freddy's shirt. This is one of those instances where there may be Velcro in there, or at the very least, the Velcro is likely, the Velcro is located on the back of his top, but there's just so much extra stuff on him, I wouldn't want to try to take the jacket off, then open up the shirt, but there's just kind of giving you a close look at what the shirt looks like. The jacket is kind of like a twill, or like a corduroy, I suppose, is one of the better close proximities to the kind of material that they used. Slightly thin, but it does give some additional posability options with Freddy. You can't certainly use very tight, thick woved fabric, because it would limit what you would be able to do with Freddy. Retro cloth figures are a little bit more of the limited variety when it comes to posing them compared to the plastic counterparts. But you still do get a fair bit of motion and movement from Freddy's arms. They're not 100% limited, and that's probably one of the reasons why they use the thinner material here. He's even got like a little handkerchief in his pocket. No, it's not removable. It's not something you can take out. And he does have also some faux pockets, not real functional pockets, but at the very least a flap to convince you that a pocket may be there. A couple of buttons, and then of course matching pair of pants. Freddy does have his shoes. Now, I do wish that eventually down the road, NECA will look to maybe replacing the swivel hinge, the pin hinge. Basically, there's a pin running through this, and then the foot is clamping itself onto the leg. One thing that they could maybe entertain the idea of doing is, and I've mentioned in a couple of videos, is swapping a pin hinge for the likes of a ball joint. Providing the ball joint is, and the cup of what's sitting into the ball joint is tight enough, you wouldn't have any real problems with it. The reason why I would go the route of ball jointing the figure is generally I find the feet are always on an angle. Maybe one foot is not so bad, but I always find like this foot is always slightly on an angle. It does make standing the figure a little on the trickier side. Yes, you can get him to stand, but you can probably see that the feet do angle out. By making those ball joints, that's something certainly at a more easier cost-effective means as well. It would also allow you to angle and tilt the foot a little bit more inward, so it wasn't, so obviously jetting out to the side like this. Posability on Tuxedo Freddy. His head rotates all the way around, it hinges also up and down, and you can rock it back and forth. A lot of that is due to the fact that the head sits on top of a ball joint, giving you a much more, from their standpoint, a more cost-effective means of producing articulation on a figure. And from collector's standpoint, it's a much easier joint to manipulate rather than using hinges and all that sort of articulation. The arms hinge outward. Not really too limited, I have to admit, by the jacket, the material that they use, because really he's got 2 layers of material. The shirt and, of course, the jacket. But the arms hinge out. You can bring them forward. You can bring them back. He has what only is 1 single hinge in the elbow. And then his hands rotate all the way around. They can also hinge back and forth. He has a waist swivel. The legs split out to about there. And forward and back. Bend at the knee. They do rotate, but it actually rotates at the top where the leg pegs itself in place. It's allowing you to rotate it there. And then, as we've already discussed, he does also have that hinge in the foot, which hopefully down the road they can replace that with a ball joint. And there's the undersoles of his shoes. I'm certain that they've used the shoes before. They're a pretty common variety boot or shoe. They probably have also used that for the likes of the Jason Voorhees figures, because you can get a lot of mileage out of this particular sculpt. Again, with the retro cloth releases, it does give NECA the opportunity to expand out their portfolio and give us figures that we may normally have not gotten in plastic form. But by giving them this retro cloth treatment, essentially you're only changing the head, you're changing the hands, in some cases you're changing, of course, the boots. The rest of the body stays the same, and then you're simply just putting material over it. It's a cost-saving measures on their part, and so far the retro cloth figures have been very successful. One thing I also didn't spend some time looking at either was Freddy's glove. Spending so much time really focusing efforts on a fantastic head sculpt and equally well done attire, I failed to overlook, actually, and failed to show his Freddy glove, which again, here's a close-up look at what the glove looks like. The glove is spread. I know that would essentially be breaking Freddy's hand, but the glove is spread with 2 long fingers protruding and sticking straight out, while rather the other 2 fingers bent back. Again, it's a nice look that I'm glad that they mix it up from time to time. You simply can't just always have a fanned out hand for Freddy's glove, nor can you have straight fingers. It's nice that they do mix that up a slight bit. The glove in question here is a slight lighter shade of tan with gold plate and copper finger plates. The copper does carry its way over to the back end of it, though, ultimately do absorbing some of the tan color here. The tan unfortunately doesn't make its way into the fingers, but it is a really nice looking hand sculpt. Couple that with the fact that they've added some nice dark wash, just kind of dirties and makes the glove a little bit more grimy, which is exactly what you want. You do have to sort of keep eye on where the arm is. If the sleeve does fall further back on his arm, you do start seeing instantly the new or the reused body that they use for the retro cloth figures isn't quite, of course, the same coloring as the interior palm of Freddy's glove. But I do really like the glove quite a bit. I like the outfit quite a bit, and certainly there's a lot to be said again for Freddy's fantastic head sculpt here as well. Before wrapping up this video, I also wanted to show you the card here. The card does have a read up. The last of the Elm Street kids are now at a psychiatric ward where Freddy haunts their dreams with unspeakable horrors. Their only hope is dream researcher and fellow survivor Nancy Thompson, who helps them battle the supernatural psycho on his own hellish turf. I love that read up. So much so that Freddy actually fell over. But I also do want to show you the artwork, which if you've seen enough of my reviews, you know I love the retro cloth artwork. I say time and time again that I usually hold on to these because the artwork is so good, and I put these in sheet protectors. I should show you guys my collection one day, which I basically kept like all of these, and this one is no exception. It does look really cool. You've also got the paper mache Nancy house back in the back corner there. Really outstanding work here from NECA Toys. Well, I think it's safe to say that Freddy didn't get his bourbon that night. However, us collectors did get the benefit of having Tuxedo Freddy here in retro cloth form from the folks over at NECA Toys. NECA continues to impress with these retro cloth releases, giving us figures that may never really see a full 7-inch plastic treatment. At least we get them here in retro cloth form. I'm still kind of puzzled that we didn't get ourselves Elaine's head as the severed headpiece that he could have held in his hand. Perhaps this may be a slight tease as to what we're going to be getting with an ultimate version of this guy. Certainly time will tell. I like the head sculpt, even though I don't think it suits the scene in which he's in. Be fair though, he's not really in the movie long enough to get a full glance at what he looks like. He's more or less just lunging at Kristen and leaping on the bed, slashing and clawing his way at her. We don't really see a full good look at her. We do get a full look at Elaine's head, but again, maybe that's something that we're going to be getting with the ultimate figure release of this guy down the road. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, if you guys are interested in picking this one up for yourself, it should be available now at your local comic book store. Today we were having a look at the NECA Toys Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. This was the Dream Warriors Retro Cloth Tuxedo Freddy, with what I also might add, a very cool paper mache house that does also light up. If you guys haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so, as it definitely will guarantee that when new videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss a beat. You can, of course, hit the bell notification as well, but you can also head over to the main page when you're finished this video and scroll down and see if there's anything that you may have missed along the way. Did you know, for example, that I just recently reviewed the NECA Toys It Pennywise Clown from the 2017 movie release? You didn't? Well, you can scroll over to the main page, scroll down to the section that says videos, and see that I've reviewed that as well as many other of NECA's releases. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you guys next time.